This is a cognate debate of the environmental protection underwater, protection under groundwater management and other legislation amendment Bill 2016 and water legislation amendment Bill 2015. I wish to commend my colleagues, in particular the member for Hinchinbrook and member for Moggill, as well as the member for Nanango, because in their initial presentations on behalf of the opposition, they've outlined very succinctly not only the complexities of these issues, but also the very real impacts that they have seen and they have advocated for on behalf of the communities of Queensland. This is a complex area, and as the member for Hinchinbrook outlined, it requires great consideration and care. It does require an understanding of the law in application and also an understanding of what it means for the communities and the economy. Protecting the environment, ensuring the good management of water resources and supporting economic development in the agriculture and mining industry are complex and important issues. Getting the balance right is the challenge, as these are complementary interests in some areas and competing interests in others. Opposition members are strongly committed to ensuring the interests of landholders and regional communities are appropriately protected and that economic growth is underpinned by certainty of process. There has been an argument as to how this can be achieved. That's essentially where the points of difference have been. However, the LNP is committed to getting the balance right and taking into account the needs of all sectors. It's also committed to ensuring management is based on science and appropriate monitoring without the ideological overlays of the Deputy Premier Jackie Trad. A number of amendments here are well-intentioned, though, as some committee members have noted, in the absence of a regulatory impact statement, this has impacted the committee's consideration of the bill. There's also been criticism of this government's lack of a consultation. However, it's the retrospective elements in particular we're concerned about. Retrospectivity has a cost. It is a great cost, and I don't believe that the Minister has provided the assurances to the committee or to this House in regard to what the retrospective aspects of the legislation mean. However, in summary, the amendments or the bill here makes changes to the Make Good framework for the management of underground water in terms of potential impacts by resource projects. Now, the state LNP and government extended landholder protections for Make Good provisions while in government. And while I think it's acknowledged that there's areas that more can be done, it needs to be done in a way that is based upon appropriate consultation and scientific-based review. But there was an extensive improvement under the measures that were put in place by the LNP and government. In regard to the provisions here, key amendments are as follows: requiring the resource companies to pay the landholders reasonable cost and engaging hydrologists for the purpose of negotiating a Make Good agreement, requiring resource companies to bear the cost of any alternative dispute resolution and the Make Good agreement negotiation process, the insertion of cooling off period for Make Good agreements, ensuring that impacts on water bores as a result of free gas from coal seam gas extraction attract Make Good obligations, and addressing issues in the Make Good agreement negotiations process relating to uncertainty in the cause of bore impairment. With regard to landholders' rights, Make Good arrangements are an important protection for landholders who have been affected by mining in regard to underground water. It's also been addressed by colleagues quite extensively, but worth emphasising in respect to the Water Legislation Amendment Bill, the impacts upon water development in the state, because the development of infrastructure, water infrastructure, is essential to economic development of our state, in particular in the north of our state, where there are communities whose futures depend upon access to appropriate infrastructure water infrastructure to see their communities, their regions unlocked. There are vast parts of this state where people have not accessed mainstream economic opportunity, and everybody benefits from the fruits of economic development, but those people in particular in those regions would see an uplifting in value to their economy, to their lives, and the certainty of jobs that come about. And for our friends in the north, the development of appropriate water infrastructure is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. And to see people in some parts of our state lifted out of poverty by access to local jobs and the added value to the whole of those communities with higher value jobs is so absolutely important. That's why we're so concerned by the way that this government has been against appropriate water infrastructure development in a timely way. You see, it's one thing for them to give it lip service, as they often do when they have meetings in the north, but in reality they're very slow to act and provide approvals and a pathway forward to see this water infrastructure actually developed. That's why we have grave concerns in regard to the legislation before the House. It's also been mentioned by colleagues the concerns that have been echoed literally in the streets with projects like Carmichael Mine, Eckland Stage 3, which have been through vigorous environmental assessments over a number of years, failing to get the practical support from this government. Lip service but no action. They're great at the press releases, not terribly good at the action. We want to see action. We don't want to see more lip service from this government. We want to see action where the stumbling blocks and the barriers that are put in the place of projects that have been through rigorous assessments, to see these new stumbling blocks put in place is just so frustrating to people who are so desperate for not only for their jobs but also for certainty so that they can plan into the future. I support my colleagues in the amendments that are coming forward, and also for the rigorous debate which is necessary to ensure that these complex issues are given air. But we want to see this state develop. We do believe in getting the balance right. I don't believe that this government has got the balance right.